Again?
And we're live right now. Have you done StreamYard before?
I have not done StreamYard. Did a couple of Facebook
okay.
Live events, but not StreamYard.
Oh, awesome. So if you look onto should be your right, there's a thing there that says comments. If you click that, you should be able to see the comments from the people in the group.
Okay, cool.
So yay. And this is Mr. Jeff West. Thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I don't know what kind of crowd we're going to get, but don't worry, we record this. So because of the holiday, it may be limited pickings. I'm not sure.
That is not a problem.
I'm fascinated by your history at Aflac, and that you were the top leader performer, right? So it wasn't necessarily that you personally sold a bunch of policies yourself. It was that you led your group, right?
Correct. Actually, the way that Aflac is structured, I started off in the field as an entry-level agent and then got a promotion to become a district sales coordinator. And I was a district sales coordinator for about 8 years. And that's someone who goes out in the field and they work side by side with the new people to get them up to speed and being able to make a living. And then after about 8 years, I became a regional sales coordinator for 2 years. And then my last 10 years that I was in active service, I was the state sales coordinator in the Texas Gulf Coast area. And I was one of many state sales coordinators in the nation, obviously. But and I did that for 10 years. Had a team of about 400 agents as a general rule.
That's fabulous. Yeah, and to me, you have both skill sets as a personal seller, because they wouldn't have picked you to be in a leadership role had you not excelled personally.
Right.
And then as a leader of leaders.
Correct.
That's a whole, and most of our audience is direct sales. So most of us have teams that are listening to this. So that's why I was hoping that you'd come on and share some of your thoughts, because people in direct sales, I don't know if they do that in your business, insurance business, or what you were doing,
right.
But we stay in our little bubble, and there's so many good ideas to be had in other industries.
Well, the direct sales industry in general and the insurance industry, as it was with Aflac, is extremely similar because you are recruiting a team of volunteers, and you're having to lead a team of volunteers and get them successful so that they're making money and so that their life is better, which you get paid more when you do that successfully. And at times it's so funny, you feel like you're herding cats. But it's such a rewarding career. And especially if you feel like what you do means something, which you guys do, and we did. And so it makes it a really good thing. I always told my leaders that served under me, because as a state sales coordinator, I had regional sales coordinators, I had district sales coordinators, and entry-level coordinators too. But Aflac used the term coordinator instead of manager back then. So, but I would tell them all, I said, when you get with your people, you need to get with them on a regular basis and teach them something every time you're there. Love on them, let them connect with them, let them know that you care about them as a person and enjoy each other's company, and then do something fun with them. And I know my wife and I used to host trips where we would take our top producers on trips every year, and my regional managers and their spouses, we would take them on trips. And so we kind of designed it in such a way that came across pretty well. And it's the glue, especially the part where you're loving on them and having fun with them. That's the glue that's going to hold your teams together, especially when you're leading a volunteer army.
And there's Eunice and Britta and Sherry on so far. Yay! They say
hi, everybody.
Hi. Yeah, and that is so similar to direct sales, so similar. And what's funny is I see, I don't know how you feel about this, but when you have a big group, I think it's my obligation as the person, heading the group or whatever, however you want to look at it, to see how many I can interact with each day, how many people I can make a difference for. I don't necessarily like to think of myself as I'm going to teach you people something, but I try to sneak in a teacher. You know what I mean? Either model something or sneak it in. I don't.
You slide it right by them, and they won't even notice it, but they'll be better.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. An example, I think, is the best one. You know what I mean? when I try to go out with someone, I don't stop everything and go, look what I'm about to do here. I just do what I would normally do and hope that they, is that how you felt about it too?
It is. It is, especially. It kind of depended on the role we were in because with the district level, when I was a district manager, and then my district managers that worked with me later, that hands-on role is a side by side in that field where you're working together, you're making sales calls together, you're having those sales conversations with the decision makers together. It's that same way on almost a daily or at least a weekly basis there. And then as that level goes up, you tend to be working more with those who report to you. Like as a regional manager, it was those district managers that I coached, but I coached them how to be a district manager like I was before. And then the same as a state manager. I was very blessed. I had such good people working with me, and they truly made my job easier. That it's the kind of thing it's funny. I've been retired from Aflac for 7 years, and I've been speaking and writing, and I created an online sales course and all that. People ask me if I miss it. I absolutely do miss the people. I really do. And I've even started doing a little bit more back in the insurance industry right now too. But it's the thing that I missed the most were those relationships and the times we had, even when we weren't selling and we were just building that team spirit.
That's the best, I think. And, I think it's everybody talks so much about retention, and that's how you get it. And in our Go Giver universe, because you and I are in the Go Givers Success Alliance, that's how we add value, I think, to the team members, is that relationship. Right. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's the glue, like I say, that will hold everything together. When you take like one of your people that are in your organization and they're leading a team of their own, it's that relationship that will hold the glue together. People will take the time to get good at what they're doing if they like what they're doing and they like the people they're doing it with. And so when you, as a coach or as a leadership person of your own team, when you make that happen, then your retention is higher. And since it's an all volunteer army, you live or die on retention. That's what you have to do. You have to learn how to keep that glue together to make things work for you.
It's funny. I got an event coming up. I could use some suggestions. Did you like that? No. The company, my main company, we don't like to throw around names because they don't like to be named.
Right.
But they're giving me a nice little bonus to have. I could do whatever I wanted, and I saw some of my colleagues take 2 or 3 of their big leaders on trips or something like that. I saw some of them do other things. What I decided to do was have a pig roast in my backyard.
Perfect.
And I don't know, it just seemed like I would be able to include more people. And even though I'm not giving special treatment to the biggest producers, which normally I do that, I think I'm helping them more by helping their people.
Right.
Be motivated, and we're all going to have I did this in 2014 and had about 100. I'm expecting a little bit more than that this time, but we're having a big pig roast, and I'm just trying to think of fun things. We have some yard games. I've got a DJ. Right. I've got some things like that. So I don't know. What did you do when you guys got together in a big event like that?
Well, we had a couple of events that were January and July type of events. We call them kickoffs, first of the year kickoff and then mid-year kickoff. And the first of the year kickoff was usually more of a formal. It was a banquet, and spouses would come and people would get awards for the year, that kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
But the summer one was all about family. It was, let's go do something fun. Let's bring spouses, bring children. Let's all go do something fun. We did everything from one year I took them all to Six Flags.
Nice.
It was it's called Fiesta Texas in Senate, the one we did there, but we just do something fun like that, or little outings. And there was always food. I would always run some sort of little contest so I could give out an award or something special. I had a little bit of freedom in a lot of ways in that area, and so I would run a contest per se, and we would even give away a car at the end of the contest. But I would design the contest so that there was enough commissions generated during that, so it made perfectly good business sense to do it.
Nice.
And so it was it was a good thing. And then every year, for my top people, the regional sales coordinators, what I would do is Aflac, we were all on commission. We weren't employees, but we also got bonuses, and my bonus tended to be at the end of the year. And what I would do is I would take 20% of my bonus, and I would take my regional sales coordinators and their spouses, and my wife and I would host them on a trip.
Oh, nice.
And we had, if we had a great year, it was a great trip. One year we took them to the Virgin Islands for a week. If we had kind of an okay year, we had kind of an okay trip. It's just the way it worked. But they had skin in the game with me on that. So.
No, and see, that's awesome, because you're setting for you listening in direct sales. Aflac didn't do that. He did. He took money out of his bonus and did it for his leaders. So he didn't wait for them to offer that. He didn't wait for them to tell him to do it. He didn't wait for them to give him money. He just did it.
Exactly. And what you have to realize with that, when you're leading that local team, they may absolutely love the company that you're all with. I know that that's what it was in my situation. People loved Aflac. They loved what we did for people, but that's not going to keep them in your game. What's going to keep them in your game is what you do locally that gives it more of a personal feeling than the big corporation. And so even if it's just a little bit, it could be taking your team to lunch. It could be any kind of thing like that, but do something on a regular basis so that they've got that feel of a hands-on experience, even at times when you can't necessarily be hands-on, like we're doing virtual meetings in a lot of cases now. So,
well, and even if they I do happen to have about 800 team members within an hour and a half drive of me, which is fortunate, but I do have them all over the country. So usually I try to, if I'm going somewhere, I search to see who's near me and try to connect with them. But I think that most of the leaders now are spread out. So you still can do stuff local, but you want to hit as many people as possible, I think, to increase their value.
What you just said right there is also one of the reasons you have a large team. You're taking the time to do that, and it's who you are, and it's how you give to them. Because sometimes, especially when people are just getting started, if they're on a small team, or sometimes it's just a team of one. I've been there too. Even the little small things that you do that connect. It starts a process that, as you become larger, that you continue that. It just scales up with you.
And I think, as a matter of fact, I get on the soapbox about that. You have to start when you've got 10 people, and you have to do things. You have to set your system up so you can do it for 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. Because if you don't, you won't be. Because what used to drive me crazy in our company is the actual employee manager used to train the leaders to call every one of their downline members every 2 weeks.
Right.
But that's not doable when you have even 100. So my whole thing has been trying to have systems so you can they can feel the love without you necessarily calling them on the phone, because that's not realistic to think you could do it for 10,000 people or even 100.
You're exactly right. If you can't scale it, you will limit the size of your organization, and as your organization grows, it's not as easy to maintain that personal relationship, but it's every bit as important, if not more so. But your people will feel that if you're doing that, and then the people that you're working with that are leaders in your organization, if they're duplicating that, it'll be felt all the way to the top, and that's what you want.
So how did you connect with your people as time went on and you got bigger?
Fortunately, we were still, in my situation, we were within at the most maybe a 2.5 hour drive from each other.
Oh, nice.
So what would happen is we would have weekly communications where I might do a fun conference call sometimes, or this was back in the day when you did conference calls rather than Zoom meetings. And I would have funny music playing in the background and get on, and we'd just do some fun things. But once a month, I would have meetings with all of my management team, and we would work on things for their organizations. We would have quarterly meetings where even everybody could come if they wanted to, but usually it wasn't a big family gathering at that point. But I would say one of the best things that you can do, and you got to be careful here because it can get almost unscalable if you're not careful with it, is for my top producers every week. I started off with top 5 and had to back it off to top 3 entry level agent producers for the week. I would make a copy of the report with Aflac that showed that they were in the top 3 in the state, and I would send them a personal note. I would get those accessories cards, and I would send them a handwritten note every single week. And then my top 2 district managers and my top regional sales coordinator, and eventually I had to scale it back slightly. But it was the kind of thing that if you keep it in that arena, the larger the organization gets, you could still have a lot of that contact, and they tend to duplicate it with their people. My favorite thing in the world wasn't when they told me how much they appreciated it. My favorite thing in the world is when I would hear stories where they were doing something similar with their own people. I love that.
I think that's actually, I think, hard to get others to do. At least I've had that challenge. I have some leaders, of course, that are missing in action, and
Right.
they're in the ladder, but they're just not doing anything. But I've always supported all, not all generations, but normally down as far as I'm getting paid and then some. How do you feel about that in particular? Going more than just your first.
Oh, definitely. And the organizational structure with your organization may be a little bit different than what I had, but every time that I could get my people, I would do something like a Monday morning coaching session email that would go out to everyone. And so it was something that could get filtered on that. Would go out through the managers and down to their people. I would do other things where it was basically my whole goal was to connect with them in such a way that they enjoyed being part of the organization, and that kept them in there long enough that they would become successful. We would have a new agent sales training class every month. And as a state sales manager, I would actually go in and do part of that training. We had a state training coordinator. My wife did a lot of that. And we would have the basic training going on to equip them to go out and do their job. And then I would come in and do some motivational things, or I even taught one section on financial management, which basically I recommended to them a lot of Dave Ramsey's things and pointed them in Dave's direction. But I would teach that, and I would tell them, and the reason I'm teaching you this is if I don't teach you how to handle your money, you're going to have months where you make a lot of money and you blow it. I literally had to happen to me. I had a kid who literally he wrote $100,000 in production in his first 90 days. So that meant he made somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 his first 90 days, which was more money than he was used to making. And he blew it all. And then the next quarter, he didn't have as good of a quarter. And we ended up losing him because he wasn't handling his money right. And I said, I've got to begin to teach that process better. So.
No, that's perfect. Looking for a need.
Right.
In the sales force, that's perfect.
And if everybody on the organization will just keep realizing that, building that depth, going down further and further, you'll find leaders that will rise. You'll find new people that will do well. And then just invest in everybody invest in everybody that you can in the time that you're there, as if they're the best person you have or the only person that you have, and give them the best of you. Everything's going to work out if you do that.
To me, I always thought it's not just that I'm a nice person. I hope I'm a nice person, but I would help anybody because it always has made business sense to me.
Absolutely.
Because I've talked to people, like I was out doing seminars on the circuit or whatever, and would meet somebody, and 12 years later they would sign up with me because I was the one they remembered. You know what I mean? And the other thing is, even in my own team, I've had roll-ups of hundreds of people where somebody got out and a whole bunch of people rolled up. If they hadn't already known me, I think they would have resented me.
Right.
But I already had been dealing with everybody, so it was smooth and nobody even knew the difference. But to me, it's not just a matter of being a nice person. It's a business.
Absolutely.
Business decision too. So we've got Rhonda on from Philadelphia, Helen from California.
Wow. Hi, everybody.
We've got Scott's on. Scott and I go back and forth talking about, we text each other all the time about when we see business things going on. Like, man, this guy shouldn't be doing that. You go wreck your business. We always do that. We're like talking about the business angle of it. Let's see. Yay. So, what we need to get to, though, is the book. Your book. How long ago did you do the book?
I wrote the book at the probably last half of 2013. It came out in January of 14. And that's when I began my speaking career. And it was a joy to write. And it's so funny. I used a lot of people in my life as inspiration for a lot of the characters. And there's even one that I actually got his permission ahead of time to use his real name. And that's the character of Jack Amberson in the book.
Oh.
And he was actually, he was my first sales manager right out of college, and
wow.
was the best example of so many things.
I'm sorry. This is going to happen.
Squirrel!
Oh, I got a delivery.
I saw a
My
Facebook.
world.
I saw a meme yesterday or today. It may have been one of yours actually, and it showed a dog wearing
The
a
Rambo
vest and
dog.
holding a gun, saying to protect the family or whatever. That was hilarious.
Rambo dog. It was funny. Doesn't he sound like he wants to eat the delivery guy?
He
The
does.
reality is the
he knows
delivery
that.
guy. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The UPS guy has biscuits. One of them has biscuits. The rest of them don't have biscuits. So he's mad at the other ones for not having biscuits.
He knows the rest of them have come to kill everyone. That's his problem. He's going to stop that from happening.
I just hope if I have somebody break into my house, they're not friendly, because he just wants to be petted. He doesn't really go after them. He just wants to be petted, and he's mad that I'm not letting him get petted.
Yep.
Poor dog, Rambo dog. So your book is called The Unexpected Tour Guide.
Yes.
It's a parable book.
It is. It's a business fable. It's a young salesman, and he is actually learning how to become good at his job. And I've always loved the business fable genre. I have read more books than I can count, both that are solid meat and potatoes to teach you things, and then the books like Og Mandino and like our friend Bob Burgs and all of those. And my natural tendency, my joy in reading comes really more from the parables. And so that's what I decided I want to write. There were certain key principles that I knew I wanted to teach. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to write it in parable format and take this kid who's trying to figure out what he's doing on a journey. And someone told me that the book reminded them of kind of a combination of It's a Wonderful Life and same kind of Different as Me. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's about a homeless man in Fort Worth. And I said, well, that's a good comparison. I'll take that comparison.
No, it's awesome. I got to tell you a funny thing that happened. Og Mandino lived in New Hampshire, and I didn't know. I'd read his book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. I'd read the book and loved the book and read all the books. Once I read that one, I read them all. And it was right around the time he had just died. But I didn't know any of that. But I ran across the real estate listing where they were selling his property in Antrim near me. And it's close. I know. They'd already sold it. I'd have gone looked at it. It was that really blew my mind. I thought, wow. I felt like I just missed something. Like I missed seeing him. You know what I mean? Did you happen to ever meet him?
I did not. I was not blessed to do that, but I will tell you, I can still remember the first time that I read Greatest Salesman in the World. And I literally did what it said in the book. I read those scrolls for 30 days. I read the whole book first, but then I went back and read the scrolls like I was supposed to. And it was amazing. I don't know that I necessarily got better mechanically, but my attitude and my joy of what I was doing definitely got better when I did that.
Yeah, I love all those books. They're awesome. And I'm not. By the way, if you look at the thing and you hear reviews and stuff, I'm not necessarily a religious person in any way, and I still get a lot out of the books. It's not really about that.
Right.
So, in case you're wondering if that would help your business, yes, it would help your business and your life, and you don't necessarily have to have any religious meaning to it.
Well, I got one of my favorite endorsements for The Unexpected Tour Guide came from Brian Tracy, and I met Brian at a National Speakers Association meeting, And Brian, of course, is getting up there in age now, and he was working on transitioning his business to more of an online kind of thing. But he took a couple of minutes with me. It was very nice, and he told me to go ahead and send him the book. And when he sent it back, I have a handwritten endorsement from Brian Tracy,
Wow.
and it uses the comment about, will not only make you a better salesperson, but will make you a better person in every area of your life. And I just went,
Yeah, I would have too.
He'd been one of my heroes. I would say Bob Berg, Brian Tracy, those guys have meant so much in my career. I don't know if I've ever told you this. When there were two books, I had a sales mentor. He was the state manager up in North Texas, and I was a district sales coordinator at the time. And I would make my numbers one year, I would miss them the next. I was a decent district sales coordinator, but it wasn't like I was one of the superstars. And in January of 2000, he gave me two books, and he said, I want you to read these books. And I said, Frank, I'm a grown man. I'll make my own decisions whether I read those books or not. And Frank, I'm going to read those books. One of the books was The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by Dr. John Maxwell. Recommend that to everybody on your team that is in leadership. And the second was Endless Referrals by Bob Berg.
Oh, yeah.
And I read and I changed my business model for what we were mechanically doing based on endless referrals. I began to do things with our accounts where I would go in and teach my people to go in, find out how we can refer business to them, and let's help them do more business in return for doing business with us. And then they'll refer business back, which was great. And so it was that. But within 2 years, I went from being a district manager that was okay to I got promoted to being a regional sales coordinator. And 2 years later, I got promoted to be a state sales coordinator. They made that much difference in 4 years. And the first time I met Bob, I was in Plano, Texas. I was a regional manager for Aflac, and my administrator buzzes me on the phone and says, "There's a guy on the phone named Bob Berg." And I started laughing. I thought one of my friends was pulling a joke on me because ever since I had read Endless Referrals, I had been teaching that in sales schools in North Texas and talking about it to everybody I knew, wanting them to get that book. And so we get on the phone, and of course, Bob's got that positive vocal velocity. And he says, "Hi, Jeff, this is Bob Berg." And I said, "Sure it is, buddy."
Oh, you didn't.
I did. And he said, "Excuse me?" And I started telling him the story, and it really was Bob. And we've been friends now since, I guess that was 2002, maybe something like that. And we've just been friends, and I helped him get into a lot of Aflac speaking events. And he helped me a lot he endorsed the book, and he helped me make some connections that made the book process better. And so, but
that's awesome.
he's a great guy.
Bob's great. He's just tall. I always feel like a garden gnome when I'm with Bob. I'm like, hey, Bob, and I guess I'm short. I never thought of myself as short, but I'm 5'5", so I guess that is short. Compared to him, he's got to be a foot taller at least.
I tell everybody I'm 5'10" if I stretch, maybe 5'11" if I'm wearing my boots. Yeah,
oh,
Bob's a great guy, but he was so instrumental in helping me with the book. My goal with that book was to make people feel something when they read it. I wanted them to learn something, but I wanted them to feel something. And there was I don't know who all hasn't read the book or whatever. It's the characters that are the main characters are Jack Amberson, who I was talking about a while ago. He's a real guy, and a lot of his character I wrote into the book. That's really who he is. And by the way, if you want to connect with Jack, he's on Facebook too. He's retired now, but you can find Jack Amberson on Facebook. I wanted Jack's one of the characters. Jim Ferris is the salesperson. And then there's a homeless man named Gray. And those three characters is what the book's built around. And I wanted people to feel something, and I think I accomplished that. And I've had a lot of people who weren't even in sales said, "I love that story. I love that book." And I said, "Great. Tell all your salespeople you know."
Well, I put the link out earlier, and I downloaded it, but I didn't read it yet. I've got to read it too.
I look forward to hearing what you think about it.
Yeah,
and
that'll be awesome.
There's actually a book trailer on my website. If anybody goes to jeffcwest.com, across the top on the menu, you'll see the.
I saw that. I saw the trailer. That's very well done. I like that.
When we're ready for you to write that said the lady with the blue hair, we'll connect you to our book trailer first.
I was afraid you were going to bring that up.
I love it.
I'm a shift changer, whatever you want to call it. Though blue may be temporary, and then the red may be temporary too. So we'll see. Yeah.
You would be excellent at doing this. I'm just telling you, you've got the spirit for it. The book would be it would be something people wouldn't forget. So
You know what's funny is
said the man with the gray hair.
said the man when I was speaking, and you probably did this too, is if something caught that evidently was funny with everybody, I kept doing it.
Right.
We all do that, right? So what I was known for when I was doing so much speaking is taking my shoes off. I know that's a weird, odd, but I wore uncomfortable shoes the first time, and then after that, it was like I'm doing that because everybody wanted to take their shoes off in the audience. The women don't want to wear their high heels, but nobody was willing to say it. And I'm like, guess what? I'm taking my shoes off, and it just got to be like a joke, a running joke. I don't know if I could maintain the blue hair. That's why I didn't jump all over that. I could maintain the shoe off thing, but the blue hair was harder than I thought. But
if you do the blue hair book, then what you do when you're speaking is you always have a picture of the blue hair. It can be any hair color you want to.
Yeah, that was a rude awakening for me, by the way. I didn't realize I was quite as judgmental as I obviously am. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was, but I didn't have any idea.
I think we all try not to be, but we do catch ourselves doing exactly what you said.
Right. Well, and I guess I didn't want to. The reason I didn't keep it blue is because it faded too fast, and I'm not willing to go white. I'm in denial, and I'm ready to stay there. I am committed to my denial. I'm telling you.
Someone asked me one time if I was pushing 60, and I said, "Heck no, I'm dragging 50, kicking and screaming."
Yeah, really. I'm not admitting anything at this point. No, I think what's helping me at this point, I have a 15-year-old. Yeah, let that sink in for a second.
I'm sitting there letting that go.
Right.
And it's not one of those where my brain's doing like the thing on the screen,
Yeah, don't do the math in this, but I adopted an infant when I was 42. Evidently, I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I got run over by the baby train. But now at 15, right, I think it's helping. But that day when I brought the baby home, I went to Baby Depot and bought a million things because I didn't think that was going to come to that. I adopted from a relative, and I didn't think they'd be able to do it. So I was ready to not be heartbroken when they said they couldn't do it. I wasn't prepared for them going through with it. So I went down there and bought all kind of stuff I didn't need. And the cashier said to me, "Oh my God, is this your first grandchild?" And I colored my hair that next day. I know that's it. So, but now people guess I'm younger just because I have a 15-year-old, which is working. I'm working it. Yeah, I'm happy, except the blue hair thing.
I used to always tell people that I was older than I was. When I was in my 30s, I would tell people I was in my late 40s. When I was 40, and I started realizing I kept having to move that age up. Yeah, because the reason I would do it, for someone that, when I was in my 40s, if I told them I was in my 60s, well, for somebody in my 40s, I might look okay, but for somebody in their 60s to look that good, that was pretty impressive. But now I have to bump it up to about 90. So.
Yeah, that's. No, the thing, on my team page the last week, somebody said, let's start calling each other family things, like my direct upline is mom, my next direct upline is grandma. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I'm happy you all want to be a family, but we're not doing that. We'll have to be doing cousins or
when you have hundreds of children and grandchildren and whatever now because you got hundreds of people on your team, that that could also be kind of impressive. I'm just saying.
Well, it's nice, but there's too many of them that want to call me great grandma. It's like, no, we're not doing that. Thank you, but thanks for that opportunity. Oh, yeah.
One of the things that I used to do from stage a lot was when I started with Aflac, I was going under financially. It was a very difficult time. I had moved to Texas with a company that was in a different industry, in the industrial uniform industry, and I've been in sales in Georgia and did well, and they were moving me to Texas to run an operation in Texas. And then a couple of years later, that company got bought out. And that buyout didn't work out very well for me. And so over a couple of years, for a lot of reasons, I kind of started going under. And when I started with Aflac, I was basically digging my way out of that, and I did. But I used to, from stage, I would tell people being broke jokes. I mean, it was so bad. I was talking about being down in Dallas, Texas, and a guy walked up to me and he pulled out a gun. And he was going to mug me, and when I showed him my wallet, he actually felt sorry and gave me $20. and I was told I should go bankrupt to buy an attorney, and I didn't go bankrupt for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is I owed those debts, and I was going to pay those debts off, which I actually did. I went back and paid off debts that I didn't necessarily have to because it had gotten to that point. Did it anyway. And the second reason I didn't go bankrupt is the guy wanted $1,200. I was too broke to go bankrupt.
What's funny is I have a story like that because I spent 20 years in a single wide, a trailer park. But I didn't always want to tell people that.
Right.
I didn't want to do that. And I don't know, I still am uncomfortable telling people that, but I don't know why people want to hear that. And I guess I get it, because I would, if I was still there, wanted to know somebody, made it past that, I guess.
Well, it's very easy when people are starting with you for them to feel like that this is a big mountain ahead. And so they're thinking about the big mountain as being a huge step rather than just taking the next step. And what will happen is when you tell them stories, even the uncomfortable ones, maybe at that time, because your story doesn't end there, it gives them the belief that their story doesn't have to end where it is either. And
that's a good way to look at it.
You and I had similar background. When I always talk about, there's those defining moments, those turning points. With my branding now, I call them fusion points. But there's those moments where you kind of get a crystal clear change in what you're doing. And for me, when we had moved out of this nice middle-class neighborhood, both of my daughters, who are now 37 and 33, were 6 and 10. Actually even younger than that. They were probably 4 and 8 when this happened. And we had moved out of this nice middle-class neighborhood because I couldn't stay there anymore. And I bought a mobile home. It was a 3-bedroom mobile home, but one of the bedrooms really was more like a closet. So it was like a 2-bedroom mobile home. It was almost a stretch in my case to call it a mobile home. There literally were parts where the floor was falling through. It had that shag carpet that was old in the 60s, and it was still in the home in the 90s, It was just a tough time for us. But when we moved out of the home, a lot of the kids' stuff was still in the garage because the realtor had said, or the owner had said, look, when the realtor sells the house, we'll make sure you know so that you can get more things out of the garage. That way you don't have to pay for a storage facility. And he was a great guy. He really was. And but the realtor sold the home, didn't call. Everything in the garage was given away. And so a couple of those things that were given away were my daughter's bicycles. And young kids, that's a difficult thing for them to understand. And as a parent, it just devastates you when you have to tell things like that. And I remember that moment where I was standing out on the front porch of my mobile home. It was raining. It was a little bit cold. Had kind of a tin roof over the porch, and I just got mad. And I had told the girls about their bikes, and they were inside. I stayed outside, and I wouldn't go in for a while because I couldn't stop crying. And they had stopped crying, but I hadn't. And I just said, that's it. That's my line in the sand. And it changed for me. And I just began to realize it didn't matter how many people told me no, because I wasn't working for them. I was working for my family. And so that moment, if you fast forward a few months later, I was getting back on my feet, and I took my girls into Walmart one day. And I said, come on, girls, we're going to Walmart. And Lindsay, my oldest, said, well, Dad, I got homework. I can't do that. I said, yeah, you're going to Walmart. Let's go. So we jumped in the car. We went to Walmart. And I'm going up and down the stores. And my youngest one, Whitney, who, by the way, just had my second grandchild now, she was having a hard time keeping up because she was pretty small. And I'm going up and down the aisles, and I'm kind of being loud and fun, and which is my nature, I guess. But then we get back to the bicycles. They're hanging up there. And I go, whoa, look at that. How do they get those bicycles up there like that? And the kids are embarrassed at this point. It was working well. And then I tell you, I've made a lot of money over my life and been blessed, but my favorite moment that has anything to do with career was right then when I got down on my knees there in Walmart, and I gave them both a hug and a kiss. I said, guess what? And I said, you can have anything in this store you want. Daddy can pay for it today. I wouldn't trade that moment for $1 million. I just wouldn't.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when I speak, a lot of times, if it's a big keynote, I'll actually take a couple of bicycles on stage, and I'll tell a little bit about my story. And the last thing I do is I said, I don't know who out there needs these bicycles, but I promise you somebody out there needs these. After the thing's over, sneak up here and get you a bicycle for your kids.
Oh, oh, that's so nice. Oh, that is awesome. Oh, I don't cry ever, so that is awesome. No, I'm from New England. We don't. Did you know that? We don't. No.
I protect us. I cry big.
Oh, oh, no. As a matter of fact, my mother's here. She taught me growing up, if you have an emotion bubbling up, you shove that back down where it belongs. You shove that back. Yeah. Ooh,
That's what I tell everybody I do when that urge comes on me to jog for a long distance. I lay down till that urge goes away.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, no, I think, you know what makes it hard to tell that story, my own story back then, is because once I figured out why I was there was because of my choices, I was 100% responsible. Well, then that whole mess was my responsibility too. I was there because of stuff I did and decisions I made. So then it was painful to fess up to the fact that it was all my fault.
Right.
It was easier when it wasn't my fault, but it always was all.
I feel the same way even about the things I went through. Yeah, there were some of it I couldn't necessarily control, but I could have responded differently. So it's still comes back down to my decisions. And I was telling my best friend not too long ago, so I'm a very blessed and fortunate man because I don't have one single problem that I didn't cause. A lot of people can't say that. I'm proud.
Yeah, Eunice says, be proud of how far you've come in life. I am. It's just, I'm embarrassed because I ended up there to start with. And Scott says you got out of there by your actions. That's true. That's
Absolutely.
True. No, and matter of fact, I drive down through the trailer park because it's not far from me, and 9 out of 10 of the people that were there when I moved out in 2001 are still living there today, and they used to make fun of me because I worked so much. They come out, what are you leaving up for? Because I'm doing all these shows with my Yugo and all my products strapped to the roof and everything. And they'd say, well, you're working every weekend. Yeah.
Well, my mother never really understood what I did for a living. I have degrees to teach. And when I was going to go into teaching and made that choice, she really wanted me to go into business. So she was pushing that direction, but I had got the degrees to teach. And then I ended up in the private sector and been in business and working for myself over half my life. And she didn't really understand what I was doing per se sometimes, and bless her heart. But I laughed. She came to visit us when we were living in the mobile home, and she wasn't real complimentary. And I was already making over $100,000 a year. I just didn't tell her. I did not leave that mobile home so I knew we were never going to be in financial trouble again.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Me too. I was living down there. We were making I was making six figures, and we stayed. Matter of fact, I was making six figures about 6 years before I moved out of there.
Yep.
And it just that was hard though, because it was like living a double life, because you go on the company trips and we're staying at these fancy places, and then I'm coming home and push starting my Yugo at the airport, trying to get home to my trailer. Right. So, but it was I didn't want to relive that.
My best friend and I became close friends because when I was going through that, this after I'd already started with Aflac, and we were both district managers with Aflac. And he said, we were getting ready to go on a trip to Lake Tahoe. And he said, I'm going to swing by and pick you up. And I said, no. He said, yeah, I'm going to swing by and pick you up. I said, no. He said, why not? And I said, well, I'll meet you there. No. So he came by to pick me up, and he looked, and then he realized why I had been hesitant. And he said, don't feel bad. This reminds me of exactly where I grew up. Oh. And I think it's one of the things, Lisa, that story of yours or my story of me, it's one of the reasons that we have a heart for people. And our empathy level scores were probably very high. And that's because you can feel things, and then you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and feel it like they might be feeling it. And so it's a part of your story that whether or not you share it is totally up to you, but I would always embrace it myself. I would never be embarrassed by it. I would embrace it because life is lived forward, but understood backwards. And the things that happened then led you to who you are now. And that's a pretty cool person. And so you have to just, kind of go with the flow on that. I make so many mistakes myself all the time, still make them today, but every mistake that I made is still part of how I got to where I am. So.
it's hard to meet someone, I think, that hasn't had enough of it yet, hasn't had enough of grinding it out in poverty. They're doing it now and they're complaining about it, but they haven't had enough of it yet. And nothing that I say, I've realized nothing I say or do, I can be encouraging, I can give my ideas, but until they've had enough of it, there's not much that I can do, and I feel bad for them. How do you deal with that? That's been one of the hardest things is, and relatives too. They
Oh, yeah.
they want to blame what's happened to me on luck. They want to say all this stuff, and I know that's not it. And I try to say, but they haven't had enough of grinding it out in poverty yet. That's just all there is to it.
Well, I always, in my case, I was, when I got into sales, especially the industrial uniform industry, I became pretty good at it pretty quickly, and had some good training, and I have an aptitude to pick things up, and so that's what I did. And I would come back in, and I was carrying a higher sales volume than what they were used to, and people would say, "Man, you're lucky." And I'll say, "Actually, what I find is the harder I work, the luckier I get." I was making twice the calls they were, and it didn't matter.
Right.
It was just, it wasn't that I was better per call. It was that I was making a lot more calls, and I've got to be nice. But with a lot of people, especially if they're struggling financially, when they come on board on your team, a lot of people grow up with that sense that it's not necessarily all right to make money. And it's not an abundance mentality. It's the exact opposite. And for some people, it might be that they grew up in a family that didn't have a lot, and so there's that feeling. Okay, if you rise above that, is that an issue? But one of the first things that I had to do even with my Aflac folks was talk to them about it's okay to make a lot of money. And if somebody is religious and they start thinking, well, the Bible says that the money is the root of all evil, it doesn't say that. It says the love of money is. And I'll promise you, the love of money, I loved money a lot more when I didn't have it because I needed it bad. And so it was an evolution that I had to go through on that. And so in my opinion, getting it right, that it's okay for you to make money, is one of the first steps in becoming successful in your business. Because if you're trying to make money in a business, or you're in a business that's designed to help you make money that you want to make, but in the other side of your head, you're still thinking it's not necessarily okay to make a lot of money, that's two different thoughts that can't exist at the same time. And you find yourself in a dichotomy of spirit, so that it's going both directions. And that's got to come together. It is okay for you to be successful. As a matter of fact, you owe it to the world to be successful. Because if nothing else, when I left a job to work for myself and do what I did with Aflac, I created an extra job for somebody in America to have. And then later on, I did have some employees of my own as my business grew. So it's a mindset that's got to be there. And so you start diving into resources, dive into books, dive into podcasts, listen to things, read things that will help you get your mind right about a lot of that. And if you're not used to reading books, start off reading pages. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from anybody was from a sales mentor back in Georgia named Bill Ross. And he said, if you're not used to reading books, start off reading pages. Read 15 minutes every day, and then you'll find that you work up from that. And when you do that, pick people like Bob Berg, and pick people like John Maxwell, and pick people that if you could sit down and pick their brain, you would buy their lunch, you would do whatever to spend an hour with them just to pick their brain. Well, they've shared those same things with us, with recordings and with books. So take advantage of that. It's worth all the money in the world, because when you apply those things, it changes your life. And to read the information and not do anything with it does nothing. But to apply that information in your life means everything as far as your success goes.
No, I totally agree. And the people that they make me sad is the ones that say they hate rich people, or they're mean to rich people. And I'm like, if you feel that way, though, you won't ever be able to be rich yourself, because you won't hate yourself. You won't, you're right.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, society does this thing to us. If you look on TV shows or the news, society tries to paint that class warfare that says, rich people, it's bad because they're there. And the truth is, most people who have done well in life didn't do it because they cheated anybody out of anything. They found a vehicle that if they worked hard at it, they would help a lot of people, and they'd make a little money from each person because they helped a lot of people, and that's how it grew. And it's just false narrative that society tends to put out there. But I'll promise you, if doing well in a career is bad, then America would never have become the country that it was. And so it put me to the test. Go out and become successful, and you'll see you're nice guys or nice ladies, so you'll do just fine, and you'll see, okay, I can do this now.
Well, and I know a lot. I can help a lot more people with money than I can without. I've signed people up in my business, and one lady in particular, I remember she said, I don't care about money. And she said, I just want to have build a homeless shelter. I'm like, you don't think that it wasn't homeless shelter, it was battered women. That's right. I said, you don't think the battered women that could benefit from that would benefit more if you actually had money to do it with? Because you can't sit here and do something without the money to do it with. So
I don't remember
money's choices. And anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't remember who the story was about, but there was a very wealthy person, and it was somebody that everybody would recognize the name, but it's been a while since I've read the story, so I don't remember. But started off giving 10% of their income to charities and different things that they would do, and kept getting more and more successful. So they kept raising up. Finally, at the end of their life, they were giving away 90% of what they were earning, and they were living off 10% because they had become that successful. And so when you dig into it, you really find out in most cases, I mean, are there exceptions? Absolutely. There's greedy people that are wealthy. There's greedy people that are poor. It's not about whether they're successful or not. It's about who the person is. Most people who do well in life are actually really, really good people. And as you get to know the behind the scenes thing, you find out their stories about how hard they worked and the different things. They're not the exception to the rule. They're the majority, in my opinion, anyway, from those that I've met. And yet, you had mentioned the lady with the battered shelter, the woman's shelter. Everybody needs to find their personal why. I call it a fusion point, but the thing about you that would make you work harder, it's usually an emotional connection that when you combine that positive emotional connection with your logical plan for how you'll actually succeed, that's when success really happens. And for me, it was my daughters, and I would carry pictures around with me. And every time, in my day timer to tell you how old I am, but every time I would get ready to go into a call, or I would have a difficult call, I would just look at their pictures when I got back out, and it helped me know, well, if you don't necessarily want the money for your own benefit, find something that you are passionate about and do it to benefit that. You'll have the same success. You'll still feel good, and you'll make a big difference in people's lives.
Yeah, one of the things I love about direct sales so much is the people. Matter of fact, who's on right now? Janet Leonard from Ireland. Yay! I met Janet because the company had me go over there and speak. I wouldn't have met her had I not gone over there to speak. And it's funny in this industry, in direct sales, no, that's probably in life, isn't it? Like 98% of the people would rather die than speak. Right. So even though I'm not necessarily that great at it, I got to do it because I was willing. Right. So I went around and did a lot of stuff in different countries because I was willing to do it. And the reason I was willing to do it, and I was scary because I happen to be an introvert, but very, very scary. And I had to make myself do it. But it was because I got to meet fabulous people and have unusual. I mean, I was living in the trailer park. No, actually, we were living upstairs in the attic at my mother's when I went over to Ireland, and it was early on, and I stayed in a hotel room that had 2 bathrooms. It was so big. It was so big. They sent a driver for me and everything, and I hadn't done any of that stuff. And what I kept thinking the whole time, this is kind of funny. When they figure out it's just me, they're gonna bill me for this. I'm like, ooh, they're gonna bill me for all this. Yeah. That was an awesome trip, and Janet's one of my best buddies now, and we've known each other for years and years, even though we're not in the same company. So it didn't matter it was the connection of the people. Right. I think that made that.
I'm sure you wowed them, and the color your hair is right now seems like it might be perfect to go back to Ireland. I'm just saying. So.
I want to be. Well, I did the DNA thing to see, and I'm like 12% Irish anyway. So
I've always been afraid to do that. I don't know what's up my family tree.
Oh, I'll tell you why I did it. My mother just went out, so I don't know if she'd kill me. She had some wild story. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not. She thinks I might have a sister. My father might have fathered somebody that
Right.
I have a sister. So I have no idea what the basis of reality of that is at all. But I've always wanted a sister, of course, because I don't have one. So I thought, well, if there's one out there, I want to make it easy for her to find me. So that's why I did it.
The funniest story about any of that I've ever heard. My wife tells a story when she was little. Apparently, her grandmother used to say, "Well, you're as brown as a little Indian," because she would tan really well. You're as brown as a little Indian. And of course, I guess we would say Native American now, but anyway, that was the point. And so one day, I don't know how old she was, but she was in the back of a car with a friend of hers, and her mother was driving, and her mother overheard her tell her friend that she was part Indian, and her mother looked back and says, "What? You're not part Indian." And it just destroyed my wife. It just destroyed her. No,
Oh, because she thought,
she was,
right. Well,
she was,
yeah, all of those folklore tales that we've told each other, yeah, when you do the actual DNA, you find out most of that was stories. Yeah. Yeah, I have had that problem. Yeah. But you know what? I didn't believe that whole thing, the whole DNA thing. For some reason, I thought it was a way to part me with my money when they first were doing it. So I
right,
thought, you know what? I'm going to test this out. I'm going to test this. So I adopted from a cousin. So technically, my kid is my second cousin or something, right? My
right.
kid is my cousin. I wondered if it would catch it, and it did. Ancestry caught it. I
Wow.
sent it in and said, "This is my child." They sent it back and said, "Really? This is because it's also your cousin." I'm like, "Yes, that's true."
I'm going to spare your audience all the little things that are going through my
And,
mind.
and we're not even in West Virginia, and it's true. My child is my cousin. Yes, so
Well, I
right.
grew up in North Georgia, and we jokingly said this, and what's the most popular statement at a wedding back home? Well, at least they weren't first cousins.
Oh, that yeah.
I
Well,
apologize to
yeah.
all my family back in Georgia. I just love telling that.
I'm buddies with one of my buddies. Molly's husband is from West Virginia. We kid each other because rural New Hampshire and West Virginia have a lot of similarities. We're going on there. Yeah, the whole dirt road thing. So, well, that is awesome. I want to make sure everybody connects with you. Jeff C. West, make sure you put the C in. He said that doesn't bother him, but obviously it's bothering me because somebody else is Jeff West, and you have the C, so make sure you put that. And the book is called The Unexpected Tour Guide, and I am definitely going to read that next. I have my Kindle all fired up for that, and I hope we can all read it together in the group. Thank you very much for coming on. So the most important question of the day is cookies, brownies, or sea salt caramels?
Sea salt caramel.
Oh, man after my own heart. Yeah, that's my new favorite too. I know. Scott too. He likes the sea salt caramels too.
It's one of those things that I would say it's a guilty pleasure, but I'm not really feeling too guilty about it.
Yeah, I actually have to freeze them so I don't eat them too many in a row. They're harder to eat frozen. Try that. Because if you don't, you could pretty much eat the whole bag, and that's the end of that. No, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm thankful that we made the connection in Bob Berg Success Alliance, because that's been like my favorite hour of the week.
I love that. I really do.
Yeah, it's
And
fun.
he's a good guy. So
Yeah, he's awesome. Well, I guess we can go. We got a couple minutes. Can I tell you one more thing?
sure.
You're gonna laugh. Okay, so you know how you feel about Bob and Brian. Well, I have that like hero worship thing going on with Zig Ziglar and Les Brown.
Right.
And I did get to meet both of them. Zig Ziglar, I finally met not long ago. It was prior to him, well, obviously prior to him passing. Yeah, obviously, right? But it was close to that. So his daughter was there, Julie was there helping him. But he saw me speaking, and I'm just thinking, I'm just glad I didn't know that at the time, because I'm not sure I could have done it. And then Les Brown, that was worse. Zig, I sat there and got a picture with him, and I found out he saw me, and I was really happy. Les Brown, you know what I said to Les Brown? I waited for 2 hours to speak to him, And you know what I said to him?
Yeah.
My mother likes you a lot. Nothing about me or how I know him or anything. My mother likes you a lot. What is that?
When I first started speaking, I actually worked with a lady who had worked with Zig. And matter of fact, when Zig first started speaking, she would go out and book the venues and get everything going like that. And they had a business relationship, and she had helped me with my keynote. And so it was the stories she would tell were quite interesting. You know, Zig actually had a funny story or joke about every 90 seconds in his keynote.
Oh,
That's
no, I didn't know that.
amazing.
Yes, that is. And matter of fact, I love Bob Berg's impression of
He's
Zig
great.
Ziglar. That's my favorite.
My favorite thing about Zig is he never had an accent. And as a Georgia boy, I appreciated that.
Right. Yeah, Bob does it so good, though. He's funny. He always used to do that on the phone when he called me.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you so much, Jeff. I really, really appreciate it. And stay right there for a second, because we go back to the green room when I end the broadcast.
It
Okay.
was my pleasure. It's good. Everybody, nice to be on here with you. So.
Thank you, everybody.